Captain Sarah Wheeler patrolled Bastion 7, a space station on the desolate and darkened Earth, gazing out the window. The sky appeared as a void of blackness, with stars seemingly having drifted away from this sorrowful world. Sarah carried a heavy burden. Being humanity's last hope had placed a tremendous responsibility on her shoulders. The space station, a massive metal structure at the heart of Earth, now resembled more of a prison than a sanctuary. Under the pressure of the Krelian Empire, people felt trapped. Cities had turned to ruins, squares were empty, and only fear reigned over the planet. Bastion 7 was one of the few places still standing in this dark world, but even here, hope was dwindling. As Sarah read the incoming intelligence reports, she felt a tightness in her chest. When she learned that the Krelian were planning a final and devastating assault on Earth, her breath caught in her throat. She clenched her fists and slammed them on the table. This could be humanity's end. After years of war, they no longer had the strength to endure. When Colonel Harrison entered the room, Sarah lifted her gaze from the floor to look at him. The seriousness on Harrison's face clearly showed how dire the situation was. "Sarah," Harrison said, his voice filled with both fear and desperation. "The Krelian are planning a massive attack to completely annihilate our planet. All our information confirms this." Sarah looked at Harrison and took a deep breath. This was the moment she faced all her fear and helplessness. This could be the end of Earth, she said to herself, but somewhere inside, she still knew there was a glimmer of hope to end this war. Her thoughts turned to her family. Her brother, lost when the Krelian invasion began, her mother struggling to survive in a distant refugee camp. I couldn't protect them, Sarah thought. But this time would be different. This time, she was determined to fight. Harrison placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Sarah," he said, his voice now softer. "You are the leader of this team. If anyone can win this war, it's you." Sarah looked into Harrison's eyes and momentarily forgot her fear. Yes, she thought, we can win this war. But doubt still trailed her like a shadow. "All right, Colonel," Sarah said, taking a deep breath. "We will stop this attack. We will fight them until the end." Captain Sarah Wheeler stood in the war room of Bastion 7, seemingly lost among the streams of information and data flowing across the screens around her. Around her, battle-weary officers, engineers, and strategy experts waited impatiently for her orders. All eyes were on her, their hopes and fears were resting on her shoulders. Colonel Harrison stood in front of the large holographic map at the center of the war room. The map displayed the regions controlled by the Krelian Empire across the galaxy. Harrison's expression was tense and resolute. "Captain Wheeler," he said, his voice echoing through the room. "The Krelian are preparing a massive warship called Zaracrone. If this ship reaches Earth, it will have the power to annihilate the entire planet." Sarah tried to process Harrison's words. The name Zaracrone was like a legend of terror across the galaxy. This ship was the Krelian Empire's most powerful weapon, and now they were sending it towards Earth. If they couldn't stop it, the end of humanity would be inevitable. "How much time do we have?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Harrison pressed his lips together tightly. "We have only a few days," he said. "Zaracrone is currently in hyperspace, but it will soon enter Earth's orbit." Sarah took a deep breath. She quickly assessed the possibilities in her mind. This wasn't a routine operation, it could be the final battle that determined humanity's fate. Fear gnawed at Sarah, but she couldn't allow it to control her. "We know what we need to do," Sarah said, her voice strong and determined.
"We must stop Zaracrone.
If that ship reaches Earth, everything will be over." A murmur rose in the room. Everyone knew how dangerous this mission was. Stopping the Krelian Empire's most powerful ship was like a suicide mission. But there was a spark in Sarah's eyes. She was the only one who could bring success to this desperate mission. "We need to develop an attack plan," Sarah said, turning her face toward the war map. "We'll use everything we have to stop Zaracrone. Our engineers will activate our most powerful weapons and defenses. The best pilots will be on the assault team. Only then can we reach the ship. Colonel Harrison nodded in agreement with Sarah's determination. What about the Krelian Empire's defenses? He asked. Zaracrone isn't just a ship, it's protected by a fleet. Sarah turned to Harrison and replied with a brave expression. That's why we need to conduct this mission with secrecy. We'll do everything we can before the Krelian realize our attack. If we can stop Zaracrone, the Krelian Empire will lose their most significant weapon. It will be a major victory for us. Harrison paused for a moment, considering Sarah's plan. Finally, he nodded in agreement. I understand. It's dangerous, but it's our only option. Sarah scanned everyone in the room with her gaze. I need all your support for this mission, she said. We must unite to destroy the Krelian Empire's most powerful weapon. If we succeed, we can build a new future for humanity. A deep silence fell over the room. Each face reflected the same determination. There would be no retreat in this battle, they would fight to the end. This might be our last chance, Sarah added. But if we win this war, humanity will be reborn. We will stop Zaracrone and achieve victory against the Krelian Empire. Sarah's words ignited a glimmer of hope in everyone present. This was their call to arms. Once more, it was time to rise for the future of humanity. After leaving the war room of Bastion 7, Captain Sarah Wheeler walked through the silent corridors, her mind a storm of turmoil. The resolve she had shown in the briefing room was now replaced by deep anxiety. The mission to stop Zaracrone seemed almost impossible. This was not just a battle that would determine her own fate, but the fate of all humanity. The weight on her shoulders felt heavier than ever. Sarah entered an observation room in the base, where she began to gaze out at the star-filled void. The silence of the universe only intensified the chaos within her. Sarah took a deep breath and asked herself, can we really succeed in this mission? If we fail, I'll be putting all of humanity in jeopardy. Perhaps the burden of this war is more than I can bear. As these thoughts swirled in her mind, her steps led her to a small shrine at the base. This shrine was built to honor those lost in battle. Here, the names of fallen friends and crew members were inscribed. Sarah felt the weight of her losses once more. Past failures and losses now seemed to weigh even more heavily on her. The heavy atmosphere inside the shrine pressed down on Sarah like a stone. Here, she had to confront the friends she had lost. Her gaze fixed on a plaque bearing the name of one of her closest friends, Lieutenant Marcus Trent. Trent had been killed in the last great battle against the Krelian Empire. Sarah had been shaken by his death and had not forgiven herself since. Marcus, Sarah whispered, tears welling in her eyes. If I accept this mission and we fail, we could lose many more friends like you. Maybe the burden of this war is too heavy for me to bear. As Sarah lost herself in the silence of the shrine, a voice pulled her from her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Rico, a young officer newly assigned to the base. Rico paused in surprise at seeing Sarah alone in the shrine and then slowly approached her. His face showed a fresh determination and the hopeful light of youth. Captain, Rico said, with a hint of hesitation. I was surprised to see you here alone. I was preparing for our attack on Zaracrone and, if I'm honest, I'm a bit scared. Sarah looked at Rico. The innocence and courage in the young officer's face reminded her of her own youth. She saw her own fears reflected in Rico's eyes. This war is frightening for everyone, Rico, Sarah said with a faint smile. But fear makes us stronger. What matters is whether we let that fear control us or not. Rico listened carefully to Sarah's words and then took a deep breath. Captain, I want to ask you something, he said, his voice now more serious. Do you really believe we can succeed in this mission? Sarah looked into Rico's eyes and hesitated for a moment. All her doubts and fears surfaced in an instant. But Rico's determination reminded her that this war was not just the struggle of one leader, but of a whole team. This mission is extremely dangerous and difficult, Sarah said sincerely. But it could be the final struggle we face as humanity. If we succeed, we will save not only ourselves but future generations as well. Everyone has a role in this battle, Rico. Yours, mine, all of us. Rico nodded as if drawing courage from Sarah's words. Then he said with a slight smile, "We will win this war together. We will stop Zaracrone and save humanity." Sarah found courage once more in Rico's resolve. Perhaps the burden of this mission was not solely on her shoulders. This war was the fight of all humanity, and Sarah realized she was not alone in this struggle. "Right," Sarah said, taking a deep breath. "We will win this war together. We must stop Zaracrone, and we will succeed." Sarah felt her doubts beginning to dissipate. With young warriors like Rico by her side, they could win this war. She decided to leave her fears behind and walked out of the shrine, renewed with determination to accept the daunting mission. After accepting the weight of the mission, Captain Sarah Wheeler knew she was no longer alone. However, she needed more information and guidance to stop Zaracrone. A sage, who had been hidden away in a place no one had reached for years, held the key to completing this daunting task. This person was Master Darius, an ancient ally of humanity who had survived the first clashes with Zaracrone. After a brief meeting with her team at Bastion 7, Sarah decided to set out in search of Darius. The Horizon, a hunter ship, swiftly headed toward the unknown region where Darius was believed to be hiding. Though Sarah still had some doubts, what she would learn from Darius could determine the outcome of the mission. The journey was silent, with only the deep monotonous hum of the ship's engines resonating in Sarah's ears. This silence amplified the voices of her thoughts. Darius was a legend to Sarah, a sage who had survived Zaracrone's terrifying assaults and proven his strategic genius in countless battles. However, Sarah wasn't even sure if he was still alive. Yet, she had no other option. Eventually, the Horizon reached Etheria, an isolated planet in the farthest corners of the universe. The planet's atmosphere was thick and shrouded in gray clouds, a dark world devoid of sunlight. As Sarah disembarked, her heart raced. Stepping onto this planet, she felt a sense of being beyond time and space. Every corner of this world seemed to bear the marks of ancient wisdom. As Sarah approached the place where Darius was hiding, she saw a beam of light within a dark cave. It was not an ordinary light, but a nearly sacred glow. Sarah quickened her pace and upon entering the cave, saw an elderly man seated within. The man, with his long white beard and deeply lined face, seemed to defy time. His eyes, despite the thousands of years he had lived, still reflected a sharp and youthful intellect. "Welcome, Captain Sarah Wheeler," Darius said in a voice that was both quiet and powerful. "I have been expecting you." Sarah was taken aback by the sage's words. "You were expecting me?" she asked, unable to hide her surprise. Darius nodded slowly. "I sensed Zaracrone's resurgence. His power disrupts the balance of the universe, and you are the one chosen to restore that balance. But courage alone is not enough. Wisdom, strategy, and sacrifice will also be required." Sarah felt small in the face of the sage's profound wisdom. "What must I do to stop Zaracrone, Master Darius? I need your guidance to win this war." Darius silently rose and lightly placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "This war cannot be won with weapons alone," he said, his eyes penetrating into Sarah's. "Zaracrone is not only a physical threat but also a mental and spiritual one. To defeat him, you must first conquer your own inner fears. His power feeds on fear and chaos." Sarah took a deep breath. Darius's words reminded her once again of the complexity of her mission. "But as a captain, I am used to leading armies. How can I possibly stop such a threat on my own?" Darius retrieved an ancient chest from the depths of the cave. Upon opening it, a glowing crystal emerged. This crystal was an energy source used by the universe's wisest warriors for centuries. "This crystal," Darius said, extending it to Sarah, "contains the knowledge and power of all wars. However, it can only be controlled by a pure heart and an open mind. With this power, you can counter Zarachrone's dark energy. But it comes with great responsibility and danger. As Sarah held the crystal, she felt the power within it. It was not just a weapon but also a guide. The light emanating from the crystal strengthened Sarah's resolve. "I will stop Zarachrone," Sarah said with a determined expression. "This crystal may be humanity's last hope. I will use it, but I am also aware of the enormous responsibility it carries." Darius gave Sarah an approving look. "Remember, Sarah," he said quietly, "the greatest weapon in this war will be your courage. The crystal is just a tool. The real power lies within you." Sarah took a deep breath and nodded, thanking Darius. She now felt both physically and mentally prepared to carry out her mission. She possessed a new strength for her fight against Zarachrone, and this strength would carry her one step further toward victory. As she returned to the horizon, Sarah's thoughts began to clear. She was no longer just a captain but also a leader, a warrior, and humanity's hope. This journey would transform her both physically and spiritually. As she moved toward the ship, she buried her fears once more and walked with renewed determination. Captain Sarah Veeler stood on the bridge of the horizon, her gaze fixed on the distant stars glittering in the void. She was ready to embark on her mission, and all preparations had been made. This was not just a mission, it was a battle that would determine the fate of humanity. Every step forward carried great risk and uncertainty. Sarah took a deep breath and turned to her crew. "Friends," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "Today marks a turning point for both ourselves and all of humanity. We are setting out to put an end to Zarachrone's threats. Your courage and support are crucial on this journey. We are not alone, we will succeed together." The crew appeared to draw strength from Sarah's words. A tense silence hung in the air on the bridge, but Sarah's words broke that silence and lifted everyone's spirits. Outside, the horizon's powerful engines flared, and the ship slowly began to venture into space. Their destination was Raxor, one of the planets under Zarachrone's occupation. Sarah's anxiety had eased somewhat, but an unknown danger awaited them. Raxor was a planet with a military base and was heavily protected by defense systems. Passing this planet would require great strategy and courage. The ship's computers and radar systems were making the final preparations for the mission. Sarah's office, filled with her belongings and strategic notes, was being checked one last time before the mission. Meanwhile, the crew members were preparing to take their positions. The team was well prepared for battle, but no one knew exactly what they would face. "We are approaching Raxor, Captain," said First Officer Elaine, pointing to the image of the planet on the screen. "The defense systems are extremely powerful. According to our data, there is a dense energy shield around the planet. We will need a strategic plan to get through this shield." Sarah listened carefully to Elaine's words. "Our goal is to breach the shield and infiltrate the planet. This task may be challenging, but with a careful plan, we can succeed. Everyone needs to focus on their duties and be prepared." The crew began to move according to Sarah's instructions. As the ship approached Raxor, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The unseen dangers seemed ready to erupt at any moment. Sarah reviewed the strategic maps in her hands and corrected small details that might have been overlooked by the team. Soon, the horizon approached the energy shield surrounding Raxor. The shield was a massive energy field encircling the planet, and getting through it seemed nearly impossible. Sarah recalled the information and the crystal she had received from Darius. This knowledge would be crucial in overcoming this difficult moment. "Energy shield levels are rapidly increasing," Elaine said, her eyes darting anxiously across the screens. "Energy levels are dangerously high. This is our best chance to get through the shield." Sarah took a deep breath and held the crystal tightly. The crystal's glow conveyed its internal energy. "We will use this crystal to breach the energy shield. As we learned from Darius, the crystal's power can help us balance the shield's energy." The entire crew on the bridge focused on Sarah's plan. The crystal's energy was integrated into the horizon systems, aligning the ship's energy field with the shield. The only task remaining was to adjust the crystal's power correctly. As Sarah carefully placed the crystal, the crew noticed a change in the shield's energy on the screen. The shield began to interact with the crystal's energy and slowly became more permeable.
Now,
Sarah shouted. Increase energy levels and target the shield's weak points. This is just an opportunity, we must seize it. The horizon swiftly passed through the weakened section of the shield and headed towards the planet's surface. There was only the journey ahead and the preparation for the great battle remaining. With the energy support provided by the crystal, Sarah encouraged her crew to continue towards their goals. As they approached the dark and gloomy surface of the planet, Sarah's excitement and tension increased. This was a turning point for both the crew and herself. They had now completed all their preparations and stepped into enemy territory. The real challenge was about to begin. Taking her place on the bridge, Sarah turned to her crew and said, "The only thing left to do now is to face whatever we encounter on this planet. We must give everything we have to stop Zaracrone. Are we ready?" The crew, inspired by Sarah's words, found renewed courage and inner strength. "We are ready," they answered, their voices echoing with determination. As the horizon continued its journey into the depths of Raxor, Sarah and her team were prepared to face the challenges of the battle and keep humanity's hope alive. As the horizon advanced towards the dark atmosphere of Raxor, tension on the bridge escalated. Captain Sarah Veeler continuously updated her crew, ensuring they remained alert and vigilant. The surface of Raxor, partially visible through the dense clouds enveloping the planet, had a foreboding appearance and was completely surrounded by Zaracrone's military installations. "Enemy defense systems detected," shouted First Officer Elaine, pointing to the threats appearing on the screens. 3 large warships and at least 20 small reconnaissance vessels are present. There are defense shields and explosive traps. Sarah, trying to mask her concern, turned to her crew. "We need to be cautious as we approach the target," she said. "This is a critical moment for infiltrating the planet. Activate all our systems and defenses. Let's deploy our defensive strategy." The crew quickly followed the orders. Horizon's defense systems were activated, and energy shields were deployed. An energy shield forming an armored protective layer around the ship created the first line of defense against enemy attacks. "Enemy ships are on the move," Elaine announced with urgency. "They're launching an attack." At that moment, the ship's bridge was bombarded by enemy fire. Energy waves exploding in space collided with Horizon's shield, and the sounds of impact reverberated throughout the bridge. Sarah's eyes focused intently on her crew, coordinating their efforts to manage the enemy assault. "High-energy explosions," reported Chief Engineer Lewis, panicked. "Shield power is decreasing. We're under the effects of high-energy blasts. Reinforce the defense systems." Sarah commanded, maintaining her composure. "No retreat. We will continue the assault. We don't stop until we reach our target." Meanwhile, under Sarah's command, the crew worked with extreme efficiency and coordination. The ship employed advanced defensive weaponry to counter and repel enemy fire. Sarah's teams launched effective counterattacks targeting the enemy ships. Throughout the corridors of the Horizon, the crew members were visibly affected by the stress of the battle. The team worked to complete their tasks without losing their balance. Many technicians and engineers were rapidly repairing the ship's energy systems and reconfiguring the shields. "We've identified the weak points on the enemy ships," Elaine said, analyzing new data on the screens. "If we target these critical points, we can halt their attacks." Sarah reviewed the maps in her hands and marked the strategic weak points of the enemy ships. "Now, we'll launch a coordinated attack. Identify the targets and focus all our power on hitting these points." The crew swiftly implemented Sarah's orders, targeting the identified weak points on the enemy ships. Energy blasts and laser fire began to hit the enemy vessels. Each explosion echoed in the dark void of the planet, and the enemy ships began to withdraw. The Horizon began its descent towards the dark surface of Raxor. The planet's surface appeared to be engulfed in gloom and chaos. Gravity was strong, and the clouds were dense and dark. Sarah Wheeler instructed her crew to carefully check all systems before entering the planet's atmosphere. At this moment of rising tension, everything had to function perfectly. "Captain, we're transitioning to infiltration mode," Elaine said, looking at the screens on the bridge. "Energy shields and engines have been reduced to minimum levels. Infiltration mode transition successful." Sarah examined the details of the planet's surface on the screens. High-resolution sensors showed the locations of enemy bases and security measures. "Be cautious, crew. There could be danger at any moment on this planet," Sarah told everyone under her command. "Discretion is our most critical factor during the infiltration." The Horizon's lights were completely turned off, and engine noises were minimized. Everyone on the ship was aware of the seriousness of the mission. Sarah gathered the crew, who were dressed in specialized infiltration suits. "Review the withdrawal plans and follow every step carefully," she added. "The enemy could detect us at any moment." As the ship approached the planet's surface, a tense silence prevailed outside. Sarah and her team began to advance towards the base using their infiltration tools. The base was carved into a large mountain, with high-tech security systems surrounding it. The entry point was quite serene but could be vulnerable to an attack at any moment. "The entry point is 200 meters ahead," whispered technical specialist Max, monitoring the information on his glasses. "There are security cameras, but our cyber scanners have temporarily disabled them." Sarah stood still, observing her surroundings. "Are the cyber scanners absolutely sure the security systems are fully disabled?" she asked. "I don't want to be looking back." Max checked his screens. "Yes, the security cameras are temporarily disabled. However, this will only last a few minutes." "We need to hurry," he said. Each member of the team silently advanced towards the base. They had to be careful while passing through hidden passages, minimizing their steps and aware that every sound could be noticed. Upon reaching the entry point, Sarah used a specially designed cutting tool to open the door. As the hinges moved silently, they entered the interior. The inside was a high-tech control center, equipped with screens, buttons, and complex devices everywhere. "Let's scan this area," Sarah instructed her team, who had spread out across different corners of the room. "We need to find the most crucial information. We have tasks to complete before we withdraw." Sarah and her team began working to gather important information about the base. They scanned computers, examined data storage, and looked for clues about the enemy's plans. The most critical data provided information on the planet's energy systems and defense strategies. Suddenly, a security alarm within the base began to sound. Sarah instructed her team, "We're switching to emergency withdrawal. The security systems have reactivated." The crew quickly regrouped and made their way back to their extraction point. They closed the door behind them and rushed towards their infiltration tools. Outside, amid the storm-tossed clouds on the planet's dark surface, they hastened to return to the horizon. During the return journey, they encountered numerous dangers and obstacles. They were nearing the security checkpoints of enemy troops. To keep the team motivated, Sarah said, "Come on, team. We've accomplished our mission, now we need to get back to the ship. Our safety is crucial to securing our successes." Eventually, they returned to the horizon. Sarah took a deep breath as they reached the ship's secure area. Their mission had been successfully completed, but undiscovered threats still lurked in the depths of the planet. While the crew rested in the secure area, they began analyzing the data and preparing strategies for the next step. "With this information, we can target other bases on the planet," Sarah said to her team. "Now, we need to prepare to understand what lies deeper in the planet. This is just the beginning." Sarah Wheeler, in the strategy room of the Horizon, was evaluating the results of the infiltration and reconnaissance mission on the planet Raxor with her team. The collected data indicated that the planet's energy network was highly complex, and that the weak points in the defense systems could change at any moment. The data we've gathered is quite extensive, Sarah said in the room filled with maps and screens. However, a significant portion of the energy systems seems more dynamic than expected. Targeting the main energy network connected to the bases on Raxor might be challenging. Elaine, examining the schematics of the planet's energy network on the screens, said, some sections of the defense systems appear to be temporarily offline. However, this situation might not last long. Additionally, there are indications that some critical points within the bases are used to temporarily disable the energy network. Sarah turned to her crew. This situation indicates that we need to reassess our plan. The bases on Raxor are well protected and undetected. We need to review our plans and develop a new strategy, she said. Under Sarah's leadership, the entire crew began analyzing the data. The information revealed detailed insights into the external defenses and internal security systems of the Raxor bases. However, the enemy's multi-layered defense strategies were the biggest obstacle to their plans. Max from the computer screens said, some critical points inside the enemy bases might be used for reconfiguring the energy systems. Many of these points are designed to complicate our infiltration. Yes, Sarah confirmed. There is a possibility that the enemy could detect us. We need to develop a new plan. Instead of targeting the energy networks of the bases, we should try to bypass the defense systems in the weaker areas. Sarah and her team had to put their new plans into action. With each passing minute, the enemy's defense systems became more complex, and the timing for the crew grew increasingly critical. Soon, a piece of information that caught Sarah's attention emerged during the crew meeting. It seems that one of the bases on Raxor uses a special structure to reconfigure critical energy networks, Sarah said. The location of this structure might create a gap in the base's defense systems. This gap could be an opportunity to implement our plan. Elaine identified the location of this structure on the screens. The location of this structure is in one of the less protected areas of the bases, she said. There are also hidden passages and escape routes. However, we must be cautious. The enemy might have defense measures in this area as well. Sarah instructed her team, we'll target the weak points of this structure. However, we must be more cautious during infiltration and reconnaissance. Review every detail before we proceed with our plan, she said. Our new strategy will focus on targeting the weak points and defense gaps of this structure. As the crew continued working on the new strategy, under Sarah's leadership, they began preparing a detailed plan. The technical team of the Horizon analyzed the planet's defense systems, while engineers identified vulnerable areas in the energy network. Finally, Sarah asked her team, are we ready? We need to put our plan into action. Time is running out, and the enemy base's defense systems are constantly changing. Elaine responded to the crew, we're ready, Captain. But we need to be cautious. We could face an attack at any moment. Sarah took a deep breath and said, then let's move out. We'll implement our new plan by targeting the weak points at the Raxor bases and overcoming the enemy defenses. The crew completed their preparations and set out to implement their new strategies by transitioning the Horizon to infiltration mode. The defense systems of the Raxor bases were constantly on alert to block the crew's progress. However, Sarah and her team were determined to overcome the challenges and complete their mission successfully with their new plan. As the Horizon silently advanced through the dark atmosphere of Raxor, Sarah Wheeler and her team were making final preparations to implement their new plans. One of the bases on Raxor had been chosen to target the weak points of a critical energy structure. Now, Sarah and her team needed to infiltrate this base to divert the enemy's attention elsewhere. Following the captain's orders, the team quickly completed their preparations and approached the base with their infiltration gear. The base was carved into a mountain and surrounded by high-tech defense systems. This time, the challenges and dangers facing the crew were greater. We're starting to enter through the secret passages, Sarah said, her voice reassuring. We need to be cautious this time. The energy systems are still dynamic, and the enemy defenses are strong. Max, checking the data on his screens, said, some of the security systems are temporarily offline. However, there is a high chance that the systems will reactivate soon. We need to move quickly. The rest of the team silently made their way toward the entry points of the energy structure. Once inside, they encountered high-tech defense devices and security cameras. However, the team managed to quickly bypass the checkpoints and get inside. Sarah began approaching the energy structures and examining the systems. "We will target the energy systems," she said. "But we must be careful. The defense systems might come online in a few minutes." Just then, the security alarm inside the base went off. The enemy base's defense systems had reactivated. The team began to move in panic, and Sarah took a deep breath and ordered, "We're moving to the fallback plan. Move quickly." As the crew rapidly retreated, they identified a critical point inside the Raxor bases. However, while targeting this point, they faced the enemy's cyber attacks. The screens showed that the enemy's defense systems were rapidly reconfiguring, and the crew was in a tough situation. Elaine from the screens said, "The enemy's cyber attacks are increasing rapidly. Targeting the weak points in the energy structure is becoming more difficult. The defense systems are quite complex." As Sarah coordinated the crew against the enemy defenses, a sudden explosion was heard.
A bomb.
Max shouted. There was an explosion in the energy structure. The explosion caused significant damage to some of the defense systems inside the base. Amid the chaos, Sarah and her team started defending themselves against the enemy attacks. However, one of their own seemed to be cooperating with the enemy. Sarah's eyes widened in shock when she noticed this. A betrayal, she wondered. Sarah quickly moved to protect the rest of the team. She needed to identify the traitor and quickly devise a strategy to salvage the plan. The enemy's defense systems had become even stronger, and the crew's fallback plan was in jeopardy. While struggling to bypass the defense systems inside the base, Sarah intensified her efforts to ensure the safety of her allies. She reviewed the crew's infiltration plan and withdrawal route. "Everything is becoming more complicated," she said. "But we must complete our mission. Everyone, stay alert." Eventually, the team managed to exit from the depths of the Raxor bases. However, Sarah had to come to terms with the fact that one of their own had been collaborating with the enemy. Upon returning to the base, she gathered the crew and said, "There was a traitor among us. This led to the failure of our plan. Now, we need to find out who is behind this betrayal and why." The crew's morale was down, but Sarah quickly took action to regain control of the situation. "There might be setbacks in our plan, but this won't stop us," she said. "We will reassess the weak points in the Raxor bases and develop a stronger strategy to defeat the enemy." After narrowly escaping from the bases on Raxor, the Horizon crew quickly returned to their ship. The betrayal they had encountered following their assault on the base had been a demoralizing blow. Sarah Wheeler called an urgent meeting to regroup and assess the situation. In the main control room of the ship, Sarah, Elaine, Max, and the other team members were focused on the screens around them. "We need to gather information about the person behind the betrayal," Sarah said calmly. "We need to understand who they are and why they did this. We must also consider the damage they have caused us during this process." Elaine was trying to identify the profile of the betrayer on the screens. "There are some anomalous data in the system," she said. "While investigating the cause, we found a few clues about the identity of the betrayer." Max examined the data carefully. "The betrayer is actually a former member of our team. The name is
Blake.
According to the data, Blake communicated with the enemy and leaked information about our plans." Sarah, with a look of shock and anger, said, "Blake. I never thought he would be involved in such deep betrayal. Why did he do this? What was his motive to sabotage us?" Elaine continued her investigation into Blake's identity and actions. "Blake was actually an enemy agent," she said. "He had been infiltrating us for a long time. Perhaps he was working for his own goals and interests. It's now clear that he strengthened the enemy base's defenses and thwarted our plans. Sarah turned to her team and said, "Our objective is to minimize the effects of the betrayal and prevent the enemy's plans. We also need to uncover Blake's connection to the enemy," she said. "We must track him down to prevent him from causing us further harm." Soon, a communication arrived for the team. It contained information about the enemy's new move. "The enemy is planning a major assault on Viridian," Elaine said. "This attack poses a significant threat to both the planet and the surrounding bases. Blake's leaking of this information could be a strategic move." Sarah instructed her team to evaluate the new situation. "We must protect Viridian and prevent the enemy's attack. This assault represents a major threat to the safety of the planet and our allies," she said. "We will reshape our plan and be prepared for the enemy's move." The team quickly began developing a strategy to prevent the attack on Viridian. They needed to conduct a meticulous investigation to determine Blake's whereabouts and the details of the enemy's attack plan. Sarah took charge and said, "Everyone must be vigilant. The enemy targeting Viridian means a significant threat. We must also do everything we can to prevent Blake from staying a step ahead of us," she said. "As a team, we need to develop a strong strategy and be prepared to defend Viridian." As the meeting concluded, the team rapidly implemented their plans to strengthen Viridian's defenses. At the same time, they continued to track Blake and the enemy's strategic moves. Under Sarah's leadership, the team prepared to face the threats ahead, developing and implementing new strategies. Sarah Veeler and the Horizon crew swiftly took action to prevent the major assault on Viridian. They were channeling all their resources and energy into preparations to defend the planet. Viridian had become the target of intense attacks, and the team was going through a challenging process to fulfill their mission of protecting the planet. The crew had established large defense systems on the planet's surface. With defensive towers and anti-alien missiles covering the landing zones, they strengthened the planet's defenses. Screens showed enemy ships approaching and preparing for an assault on Viridian. Elaine, working intensely in the control room, said, "Enemy ships are closing in quickly. I'm analyzing the last-minute information before the attack. We need to keep the defense systems ready." Sarah turned to her team and said, "Activate the defense systems. We need to respond to the enemy's ships as effectively as possible. Additionally, we must ensure the safety of the civilians on the planet," she instructed. "Take all necessary measures to prevent any harm." Viridian's main control center was equipped with armored doors and defense systems. However, in the face of the enemy's massive assault, the team was concerned about whether the defense systems would be sufficient. Fast-moving enemy ships were preparing to lay siege to the planet. Sarah continued to coordinate the defense plans with her team. Meanwhile, the team trying to locate Blake discovered crucial information. Blake had used a hidden passage to bypass Viridian's defenses and had sabotaged one of the planet's defense systems. Upon receiving this information, Sarah said, "We need to thwart Blake's plan. It's clear that he was working to leave the planet defenseless. We must identify his escape route." Max and Elaine were intensely analyzing data on the screens to track Blake's potential escape routes. "Blake has prepared an escape ship to leave the planet. We've identified possible escape points," Max said. "We've pinpointed the location of Blake's escape ship. Now, we need to move to intercept him." As the team moved towards Blake's escape point, they made final preparations for the planet's defense. The defensive towers and energy shields were working effectively against the enemy's ships. However, the density of the enemy ships made defending the planet even more challenging. Sarah moved swiftly with her team, tracking Blake's escape ship. "We need to act quickly and decisively to prevent Blake's escape. It's crucial for Viridian security," she said. The team approached Blake's escape ship, and a major conflict erupted in the sky. This battle with enemy ships tested the planet's defense systems, while the team fought to capture Blake. Blake's escape ship was about to reach the outer atmosphere of the planet. However, Sarah and her team made one final move to prevent Blake's escape. A fierce confrontation occurred, and Sarah succeeded in capturing Blake. "Blake, I won't let you escape," Sarah said angrily. "We managed to defend the planet, but your betrayal was a significant blow to us." Before being captured, Blake defended himself, saying, "I was just trying to save my own life. The enemy threatens people like me," he said. "Above all, I did what I had to do to survive." After incapacitating Blake and successfully defending the planet, Sarah and her team managed to repel the enemy's attack. "We achieved a major success in this battle," she said. "However, Blake's betrayal was a major lesson for us. The enemy is always one step ahead, and we need to be prepared." Thanks to Sarah and her team's determined defense, Viridian successfully repelled the attack. However, in the wake of Blake's betrayal, the team decided to be more vigilant and prepared for the enemy's future moves. After the defense of Viridian, the team was working to stabilize the chaos in the atmosphere and space above the planet. However, the heavy losses following this victory and the continued threat from the enemy prevented the team from catching a break. Sarah Wheeler decided to keep her team's morale high and formulate a strategic plan. Sarah stood before her team in the Horizon's control room. "The enemy hasn't retreated yet," she said. "Therefore, we need to further strengthen our defense systems and eliminate the remaining threats. Additionally, following Blake's betrayal, we need to increase security and coordinate with our allies." Elaine, analyzing the current status of the enemy on the screens, reported, "The enemy's smaller ships are still conducting minor attacks on the planet. However, there are no clear signs of preparations for a major assault. This suggests that the enemy may have changed its strategy." Max added with new information, "The enemy continues its attacks at a lower intensity. However, they might be planning a larger move. We need to use all our defense systems effectively." Sarah also reached out to her allies. "We are seeking assistance from our allies to strengthen Horizon's defense of Viridian. At the same time, we will continue our plans to identify and neutralize the remaining enemy forces," she said. Meanwhile, some of the enemy ships had started developing a new strategy against Viridian's defense systems. A group of enemy ships was using advanced technology to bypass the planet's surrounding shields. Sarah noticed this development and called for an urgent meeting with her allies. "The enemy is using new technology to penetrate our shields. This poses a significant threat to us," Sarah said. "We need to update our defense systems to counter this new threat. Additionally, we need to understand where and how the enemy developed and is using this technology." Elaine and Max began analyzing the enemy's new technology. This technology targets the weak points in the planet's defense shields. "We found some clues about how the enemy developed these weapons," Elaine said. "We need to reinforce our shields and revise our defense strategy to counter this technology." Sarah, with her allies, devised an effective defense plan against the enemy's new technology. "We will install new energy shields and defense systems to prevent the enemy from bypassing our shields. We also need to gather intelligence on how the enemy is using this technology," she said. The team worked through the night to strengthen the defense systems. The defense towers and energy shields on Viridian were updated to resist the enemy's new technology. At the same time, constant monitoring was conducted to be prepared for the enemy's new strategies. Once the preparations against the enemy's new attacks were complete, Sarah and her team readied themselves for one final major assault. "This attack will test Viridian's defense and will be our last chance to disrupt the enemy's plans," Sarah said. "Our goal is to neutralize the enemy and protect the planet. Is everyone ready?" The team prepared for a final move. They tested the defense systems against the enemy's new technologies and launched an effective counterattack against the enemy ships. This clash became a significant test for the planet's defense. After a day-long battle, Sarah and her team succeeded in neutralizing the enemy technology. Viridian's defenses responded successfully to the enemy's attacks. Sarah celebrated her team's success and said, "Today we achieved a great victory. However, there are lessons learned from this battle, and we must be prepared for future threats." I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye, see you in the next story.